Hi guys, we're back again, one day late because of my brother from another mother. How are you?
Doing well, doing pretty good.
That's good to know, bro. Okay, so we're gonna get straight into it. Well, we are if we can.
I did want to interject one thought. We're getting a lot more comments in the last few days, and they're very much appreciated. Because when I hear that I or you said something that sparked someone's understanding, or like we like to say, connected the dots, this is what we are doing and why we're doing it.
This is
And
exactly why we do what we do.
yeah,
You know, as you say, some of the comments have been sensational, really, really good. And
yeah,
what we're going to do this week, guys, Harry's done a presentation and I've done a presentation, independent of each other, and it's just amazing how they kind of gel, they kind of click together. We're going to start with mine because mine's a little bit more simple than Harry's, and I called it "What's Your Name?" What is your name, Harry?
Harry. At least that's what my parents say.
Absolutely. All right. This is a picture of Mount Meru. Meru. And it tells us on the internet that Mount Meru is considered to be the center of all the physical, metaphysical, and spiritual universes. And it was the spelling. Me, are you me? Me, are you me? Think of what we were talking about earlier. A piece, I will give you a piece of my mind, P-I-E-C-E, or peace of mind, P-E-A-C-E, same sound. So when we're talking about ourselves, the two words that we use are I and me. But what do they mean? We use the word I, or the letter I, which is phonetically the same as E-Y-E, when we do an action. I will do something, I have done something. What is it that causes us to do an action? We go back to the notion that our body is simply the car and our soul is the driver, our spirit is the driver. The driver steers the car in order for the car to act in a particular way. So the energy, the force, the soul is the I, and the me is the body. Give it to me. Can you help me? We're referring to our body. Give it to me. Put it in my hand. We always start a sentence with I when I say I will do something or I have done something, but we never start a sentence with me. Me is usually towards the end, as in give it to me. Can you help me? So I represents the soul or the spirit, and the me represents the body, the car. So what's your name? The name we use is known as our given name because it was given to us by our parents, the two people who rent us. Our real name is a mystery. Mystery, change the E, we get my story. Know ye not ye are gods, comes from the New Testament. Look at the word Emmanuel. I'm not going to read all this, you can read it for yourselves, but from the Hebrew name, whatever that is, meaning God is with us. Know ye not ye are gods. But if you look at the end of this passage, here you can see my cursor, Manuel, Man-U-E-L, Manuel, Emmanuel. We know E is energy. God is with us. That is the energy manual. The Holy Trinity, me is your body, myself, myself is the combination of the body and the spirit. And I is the soul, spirit, essence, psyche, personality. Firmament. We know that the word, the phrase terra firma means earth, land, firm ground. Ment means mind, as we've talked about ad nauseum. So firmament, firm mind. Know the truth. If you know the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. I don't know where to put this, but I wanted to get this in somewhere. It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. But when we go down the Tartarian route, this building was founded in 1832. No, we found it in 1832. Found it. I always wondered why the word founded was used. It never sat well with me. Now I know.
Yeah, because found itself is already in the past tense, right? But it's also a present tense. You can, it's a foundation. You found it. You're gonna found. You found it. Founded.
Well, this one connects with what you're going to be talking about with the ego in a minute or two. Israelite is real light. Mm-hmm. Light is the opposite of both dark and the opposite of heavy. Mm-hmm. And that brings us into fear. Now, fear is how everyone is controlled. But fear, we now think, comes from fire, earth, air, and river, water, the four elements. Because any of these elements could possibly kill you. I had to think about that. But fire, yeah, if you were asleep in that, you wouldn't have much chance. Earthquake, that could possibly kill you. Hurricane, air, could possibly kill you. And of course, you could drown in water. So, fire, earth, air, and water. Any of those elements could possibly kill you. Now, this is where I'm going to stop sharing. Get out of that one. Yeah. And whoops. Right, now I've got to open yours, Harry. So any comments on that one, Harry, so far?
Well, yeah. I mean, you said that the four elements are a way to control us, and we're being controlled by fear, because fear is that mechanism that the matrix wants to control by. They don't really tell us what the cause of the fear is, but we can see it, right? With those four elements, they pretty much control us. The things of this world, the material things of this world, are very capable of harming us if we don't harness the energies that they possess. And but they tell us that we're going to be using the fear matrix on you because you talked about this. What is our biggest fear in life?
Well, we're taught the biggest fear in life is death.
Yeah.
We're scared of dying.
Yeah, and we're scared of dying, but we've died before.
Yeah, many times. And you don't really die anyway. You exit this hologram. We live in a hologram. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody is still under the impression that any of this is real. The only thing I see in this realm as being real is, I hate to say it, is love. And we spoke about that. We did a whole podcast on it. After last week when we said, when we asked our viewers to go back and have a look, some of them did, and we got some great comments. In fact, some of the best comments were yesterday. Yeah, within the last 2 days. Some of the most stunning comments. So thanks, guys, for going back and watching that. But yeah, this whole, what we call reality, is a hologram. It's like we're living in a video game. The only thing that makes it seem real are our connection through our senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. But when we die, we don't die. It's the driver getting out of the car, and the car gets scrapped, and then the driver can go and get into another car should the driver choose to do so. Yeah. So there is nothing to fear. But there's the old saying, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. I'm scared of nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm not scared of dying. I mean, I wouldn't want a slow, painful death, but don't bother me. If I went to bed one night and didn't wake up, well, you know.
And like you said, the senses, our sensory perceptions, are what pretty much encapsulate us in that fear.
Yeah.
And what's the biggest problem with our senses? Our senses are purposely turned down so we can't see beyond the light spectrum.
Yeah.
We can't smell hardly anything. We can't taste anything. We can't. Our sense of feel it. I mean, we can't hold on to anything that's too cold or too hot. And in some cases, we can't even hear that well. So we are very, very much like blind mice in this world.
Oh, before we get into yours, I'm going to let the guy look, guys. I'm going to put this. We're not in. You know, this channel isn't monetized. I don't give a shit about money. But with what's going on right now, with certain things that can't be said, etc. I've been using these guys for 3 years, at least 3 years. And this is the, let me just quickly share it. Oh, forget that Genesis 2. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Where are we? Okay, this is my VPN, 12 VPN. And you know, all teachers in China, foreigners use one of these. Otherwise, we wouldn't have access to the platform that we're talking on now, for argument's sake. I'm currently in, well, you know, I'm in China, but I'm in Singapore, if you like. I can connect through any of these countries. All right, this firm are based in Hong Kong. The sales, after sales service, or if you got any questions or anything, they're absolutely brilliant. So I contacted them. I sent them an email and I said, look, this is what you know, we've got a little YouTube channel. Can you give us anything if anybody wants to get it to use it? I mean, I've used the Virtual Shield one. Loads of people push that one, but I don't like Virtual Shield. This one's really, really good. It's $70 a year, right? US. And they said, how about 30% discount? I went, great. So they've given me a code, a link. Well, the code is TDP2, the Devil's Playground 2. And I'll put the link in the show notes below. So if anybody wants to think about getting a VPN, and you can use it on multiple devices. So you can put it on your laptop or your computer, and you can put it on your phone. Okay, so yeah, so just wanted to throw that in there. There's nothing in it for us. It's purely and simply, you know, Harry will get 30% off. I'll get 30% off my next renewal. So we're not making anything out of it. It's just something that we're making available for you guys. All right.
Sounds like
Let's. Oh yeah, I'll show this first. The screen share that popped up. This is, I'm in the King James, well, I'm in the interlinear, Genesis 1:2, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Well, if we go and click on the number, okay, so it means breath, wind, spirit. Right? Harry and I have maintained for a long time now that our spirit enters the body when we are born. A lot of people seem to have a problem with that. You're not breathing when you're inside your mother's womb. You're not breathing. You've got a cord that feeds you, but you're not taking in air. You're not taking in breath because you're in water. You're born of water. When you're born, doctor slaps you. You take your first breath. That's the spirit going, the soul entering the body. Right, now with all that out the way, let's get into yours, Harry.
all right. So yeah, Nigel and I both were on a similar path. We did talk a little bit about what we were going to research this week, and we kind of nailed a few issues that we both kind of both covered. So I'll start off with nothing to fear. We did talk about love and death in the last, several podcasts. So I figured, let's talk about what we're afraid of and why fear is used as a control. So I said, nothing to fear. I am 3. And the 3 that I picked was Sigmund Freud's big 3, the id, the ego, and the superego. Of those 3, who is in control? So we'll go to the next slide. And, oh, there's that thing again. Remember that one podcast where we had this message? You see that?
Yeah, let me stop share and then share it again. It does that sometimes on Zoom. I don't know why. There you go.
Or is that slide 2? No.
No. Oh. That's slide 2. Sorry.
All right. Okay, so we looked at those 3 divisions, and I said that the Trinity of things demonstrates truth in numbers. So we'll look at the id. The id is kind of like the I. When you say something like, "Oh, I'm so hungry right now. My stomach is rumbling," and then your ego kicks in and says, "You can't eat right now. We're in the middle of a meeting, very important meeting." And then your superego comes in as the arbiter and says, "You can't eat now because it's inappropriate and there's no way you're going to do it." So remember, who we are is the key and not what, as the what is the density of the material. So we want to understand that the true you, the true Nigel and Harry and all the people who are watching, the true is the spiritual nature. It's the who and not the what.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Because we know that materiality is 99%, probably more like 99.99% empty space. And it's just illusion. And it's that illusion, like Nigel was talking about, we're in that hologram. We're really not here except for some energy moving around.
Exactly.
So, because you are that driver or the vehicle. Now, in that previous PPT, Nigel had the driver and the car standing right next to it. You get in the car, you drive it around. When it gets old and worn out, you get out and you get the new one.
Yeah, but the name applies to the car, not to the driver. Your name is the name of the car. It's what we are. It's the name of the physical being is your name. We don't know our true name, the name of our spiritual being.
Yeah, and in terms of spirit, we wouldn't need a name because once we enter that spiritual realm, or again, we're just a fractal of source. So
we're a piece of mind. We're a piece of mind.
A peace of mind, exactly. So we start off as the one, which is all. Then we become fragmented or fractal, and then we become the one, and then the other person that's next to us become 2 individuals. And if those 2 individuals come together, the one and the one actually 1 + 1 is where 1 + 1 = 3, because that one person and the other produce a third.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 people come together and they have a baby. So 1 + 1 = 3. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we covered that in a previous podcast where we talked about the tertium quid, where the 2 become 3, and that third is indistinguishable between the one and the other. And a good example is Reese's peanut butter cups. You have chocolate, you have peanut butter. You combine the 2, you no longer have chocolate or peanut butter. You have a combination of both. And there's no way you can distinguish between one or the other. They're just combined.
You can't separate them. Well, maybe no, you won't be able to separate them, would you?
No, just like a person. You and your wife or the woman and her husband have a baby. That baby is not, you can't distinguish it and separate it.
It's a combination of you and, yeah.
Yep. So we already talked about the id, ego, and superego, so we can go to the next slide. So the spiritual descent to the physical. So we know that at a high vibration, you are vibrating so fast that you're not a physical being. And in the process of descending and becoming lower and lower, you will become physical. So what is man then? Man is said to be comprised of about 82 trillion cells. Of those 82 trillion cells, only 2 trillion are us. And the remaining 80 trillion are actually foreign cells. They're not even part of us, but they've piggybacked on us. And then we have this relationship together, that symbiotic relationship. We help it, it helps us. And if you think about it, that 2 trillion represents about less than 2.5% of that total body. So let's take the average man, 180 pounds, let's say. The spirit is measured at 21 grams.
Yeah, I just noticed you missed the L off the pound, so it's 180 BS, man. Oh,
what? It could be. It's probably closer.
Oh,
It's probably closer to the truth.
How is that for a bit of synchronicity slipping? BS, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. So so if you take the spirit at 21 grams, that represents 0.00026 or 0.026% of the total mass of a human being. It's almost nothing. It's almost zero. If you quantify it in a number, it's less than 0.03% is what the spirit is comprised of. Wow. So you take that as your driver, and the huge mass of the car you're driving, it seems like that little piece couldn't handle that big of a machinery, but it does. So would you think that the remaining cells then are parasitic? So let's look at nothing to fear. Also can be looked at, and Nigel touched on this: fire, earth, air, and the river water. So if man is less than 0.03% of the composition, yet is able to operate this huge vehicle, giving a new concept, it gives a brand new concept of the whole concept of a parasite. So we've got to define terms. What is a parasite? You asked this question, what does para mean? A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, called parasite, didn't we? S-I-G-H-T.
Yeah, parasite means something that sits beside para, and then site is like Greek for a grain. So a parasite is someone who feeds off of your grains. So in the old days when you had a good harvest and your neighbor didn't, he would come in and he'd borrow some of your grain and eat off of your harvest. So that notion of a parasite then transitioned into like a leech that eats off your blood. It took on a negative connotation.
Okay.
So let's look at these yahoos that we've been talking about lately.
Yahoodans. Oh, let me just
the Yahoodans.
Yeah. Why don't you tell them the story about the Yahoo search engine, where you told me the story about these people forgetting who their God was.
All right. Well, during the Israelite captivity, many times they themselves wouldn't want to mention the sacred name of their God, the YHWH. They would purposely removed all the vowels so that it would be unpronounceable. All right. So in those years of captivity, because they also incorporated that non-verbal use of the name, when they were captive, they had even less opportunity to talk about their God's name, and eventually they forgot the name. and their captors many times would make fun of them, and they would call them yahoos. So we eventually see that term had some staying power, and it's even around to this day. It's a derogatory term to talk about someone who's foolish or a derogatory name. And then, of course, we have that Yahoo is still a search engine around even today.
Okay, so let's get back to the slide.
All right, so we go to the Yahoo. So maybe then we have to figure out that the parasite of this large body composed of fear. These elements are, again, fire, earth, air, and water. And in this realm, we are...
Screen back again, hang on.
Okay.
I don't know why it does that.
So when we talk about these elements, you know, our physical world is pretty much trapped in these elements. We don't do anything that doesn't incorporate using these elements in our everyday life. And of course, we live in this world. That's what the world's composed of. So we go to Genesis 1, and we can actually compare it to Genesis 2. The narrative given is that Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are just the same story told in slightly a different form, a different format. And if you do go back and I recommend this, go back and look at the chapters in Genesis 1 and compare them to the order of Genesis 2, you'll even see that even in the creation order, they're different. The day and the night are different orders. Even the creation of man, in one version in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, the order of man before animal and animal before man. So you'll see the definite contradictions there. But we're going to look at one key word that varies in the chapter 1 versus chapter 2. And that is the word create versus form.
Yeah.
In Genesis 1:27, God creates the androgyne, not man. Let's be clear on that. We are not what he created.
No.
In Genesis 2 and 2:22, God forms Adam and then separates Eve. Now, creation, the concept is that you take something out of nothing and you make it. Forming something is taking like a lump of clay and making it into the shape that you want.
Well, there's a if you were to go into the kitchen and bake a cake, would you have created that cake? You would have created that cake using the ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
If I take your cake and then I put it in my hands and I squish it, then I am forming your cake, aren't I?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not being devil's advocate there, but there's a slight. You can't create anything from nothing.
That's true.
You've got to have ingredients in order to create something in the first place. But if you created a lump of clay or if it's snowing and you go out and pick up some snow, you're not creating a snowball, you're forming a snowball.
Yeah. So in one sense, I heard one time that the difference between forming and creating, in creating, you can take like you said, find the ingredients and then you start from scratch. But in the form of the word form, one scholar uses like taking a block of wood and carving out the parts that you don't want, or chiseling out from a piece of granite, and you create the form.
Yeah.
So there is a difference between creating and forming, and they do use both different words in both these chapters. So I think that if they were talking about the same creation, they would have been using the same word.
Agreed.
So evidently, these are two different creations. Like we talked about. In the first is the androgyne lesser gods, that are being created. And then chapter 2, it's the Adama and his attached other self that's eventually separated.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to the next paragraph. And it says Genesis 1 creation is still a bit off here. It is a cutting from another cloth of Elohim, whereas Genesis 2 forming is the molding of a lump of clay into the Adama and then dividing it. Remember, the reason why there had to be a division is because, you know, this supposed omnipotent God, he made some mistakes.
Oh yeah.
We remember the word chimera, you know, that animal with the lion body, the head of a what is it, a goat on the back, and possibly even a snake for a tail.
Well, this comes back to what I said. I think I mentioned it last week when you read 1:26 and it says, "Let's make man in our own image." Well, let's make man in our image instead of all these
experiments. Yeah.
Chimeras. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, that Genesis 2 chimera is that joined Adam and Eve in one. And then, you know, he says, oh man, this is not good. I got to separate him. He needs to have a relationship with another person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he had to rethink this. It doesn't sound very godly to me. So we'll move on to another concept. We're talking about light. I heard a podcast the other day and they were talking about how light is, you know, there's a good light and a darkness. And there's always this battle to say that light is good and darkness is evil. You know, we see it in Star Wars, the dark side, you know, all that. I think we're being pre-programmed to always understand light to be good, whereas it may not always be. So
I was listening to Steiger yesterday, and he had
Trina.
Yeah, and she came up with something absolutely blew me away. You know how we've been talking about not going into the light, right?
Yeah.
She said, I think when you go into the light, once you pass through that doorway, it's dark, it's black. If you go through the dark doorway, when you enter, it's light. It's all reversed. So you're going into the light, but you're actually going into darkness and you don't realize it. And I thought, wow, because that's exactly what you and I have been talking about for the last few podcasts, is not going into the light when you die.
Yeah, I still hold on to that. Don't go into the light. Yeah, because they are telling you to go there, so you know that you got to do the 180-degree.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to do the opposite. So what's sonoluminescence?
Yeah, sonoluminescence. Some say sonoluminescence is light that's created by sound, and you know, we talk about hearing God spoke and all was leapt into existence, right? Or the quote, and God said, "Let there be light." And then there was light in Genesis 1. Well, insertion of this strange light is pneuma or pneuma, which is spirit or breath, which you talked about when we first opened the podcast. And that when that breath or that sound impacts certain elements in water, usually, you know, nothing happens. But in this case, there can be a creation of light. And that's what sonoluminescence is. On the right side, I have two different sources of and explaining what they are. You can take your time and read through that. But these are the meetings of what sounds and elements and how they can create light. And and I'm thinking that there's a technology here that can do that. And this is probably the false light or the dangerous light. So let's look at how we can incorporate fear and this light. So I'll take the FE of fear, and that is Fe we know is the atomic symbol for iron. And where does iron really come from? You know, Nigel said that he saw a article that said that iron does not actually occur naturally from Earth.
Only in blood. Yeah.
It comes from the shed blood of all the humans that has just leapt, that has bled into the ground.
Do you know,
So,
this guys, this is how this shit works with me and Harry. I'm just looking at this slide. Look at the word fear, F-E-A-R, right? Now,
yeah.
the first anagram of that springs to mind is fare, F-A-R-E. And a fare is not only something that you pay when you get on a bus or a train, but fare, it's spelt with a Y, F-A-Y-R-E, is an old word for food. Like a buffet, you would say, I'm laying on a buffet, and there's a lot of fare, F-A-Y-R-E. Well, we've been saying that these bastards, they feed off our fear. They feed off our fare. We are fare to them, F-A-Y-R-E.
That's right.
Wow. These things just jump out and hit me sometimes. It's crazy. Please go on.
And so this metal, which could be our blood, or it's in our blood, if it reacts with a inert gas, which usually doesn't react to anything, like argon, and with both of these two elements interacting with sound, we can, and then of course water is in that same realm, we can get light that's created, and this could be that false light of fear.
Yeah.
So this is just a theory of mine, but you know, it's something that resonates with me from doing the research here. So the question that has to be asked: are all lights created equal?
No,
I don't
think they are.
think so.
No, not at all.
We know that the sunlight that we see in the early morning is totally different than the sunlight we see during the midday, and the sunlight and the light that we see during the regular day and even sunset. Yeah. And the reason we do see that is because the sun has an effect on the gases that are in the air, in the different parts of the atmosphere. The atmospheric lighting is actually varied by the different types of noble gases that exist there. So some of them are blue, some of them are orange, and that's why we get that blue sky, and we also get that red, the orange in the sky too, because the different gases that are being lit up. And that's where you can really look into sonoluminescence.
I remember an old phrase growing up in the UK, red sky at night, shepherd's delight. I don't know where it came from. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. I mean, yeah, but there's got to be something in that.
I think it goes, it's for sailors.
Oh, right.
If they see the red, it's, I can't remember if it's morning, warning, but yeah, it was for people who do a lot of sailing.
Oh,
if they see,
my mum taught me that it was shepherd's delight, but sailor's delight would work just as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we look at the different kinds of light, and I know for a fact that there are different types of light for different reactions. So this may be a depiction of a false light, or with evil intention. And again, that's the love word spelled backwards. So upon inspecting, it seems that the genuine life may originate from darkness, and that false light acts as a trap for a later incarnation, which will end in a consumption.
Well, that's exactly what Trina was saying on Arwayne Steiger's program yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that part.
That. Okay, that's the end of the show, end of the slideshow. Yeah, good stuff there, bro. Good stuff. And we talked about
Like,
a lot. Huh?
yeah, like we always say, if I know something, it's not going to do me any good to hold on to it. And I'm going to share it, and then I know that our comments that we get, they really help me to put stuff together too. And I just love it when someone comes up with something and it's not even what we were talking about, but it really resonates and it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And as we said earlier, we've been getting some great comments. So, and
Yeah.
guys, if there's anything that you want us to look at, or anything that you think, oh, hang on a minute, well, what about that, and how does that connect to this? Put it in the comments, and we'll take a look at it for you. See what we can come up with. All right. Well, as I say, like, share, subscribe. I'll put the link to the VPN in the show notes, and we'll see you next week. Unless something comes up, we want to do another one like we did last weekend, eh, Harry?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Cheers, guys. Take care.